Yeah, so this footage here is from a few jobs back, back in the spring. It was private ground near Molalla, Oregon, and it was a beautiful patch of timber. It's quite old, as you can see, and a lot of big wood, really heavy to red cedar, western red cedar, and yeah. So basically the objective to the project was to remove wood from the two small non-fish creeks that ran through the property, and that was the objective, because as many of us here in Oregon know, there are changes coming to the Forest Practices Act, and they're not favorable to landowners in general. So anyhow, we're cleaning this wood up. Like I said, it was heavy to red cedar, and red cedar is it's a very valuable tree. This was a beautiful stand of it, fairly unusual. But red cedar flares a lot at the butt, and so it's also a very delicate wood, and so I was trying to keep my stumps as low as possible and sniping them off, as you can see, trying to hit my lead really precisely to save them out. It's delicate stuff. So, given what were kind of the objective of the project, meant I was working on fairly steep ground, above small non-fish creeks that were live that time of year. It was a very wet spring, so the ground was very wet, and it was not favorable soil, and we all had kind of a hell of a time dealing with it. So even though it's steep ground, but it's certainly not too steep. But given the conditions, it was pretty tricky to try to get around. I was definitely tiptoeing here, because you never can tell what ground's like when you get closer to down to the bottom, down to a creek. Is it going to be a swamp, or is it going to hold up, or what? As you can see, there was no brush to speak of to use to chunk up and get out of bind if I had to. So this was a narrow strip and big wood, and for a hot saw, it's fairly problematic. Timber Slasher NC is going to be laughing at me all the extra moves and tiptoeing around that I have to do to get this stuff on the ground, or he could just buzz them off from one position with his Ryans. But hey, that's the way it is. And when working in a little patch like this, narrow strip, fairly steep ground, bad conditions, soil conditions, and big wood, it's very slow, as you can see, and it just takes a measured approach. You just gotta stick with it and go slowly, because you're kind of taking apart a puzzle. As I said before, this red cedar, as those of you know who cut it regularly, super valuable and quite brittle, and so these larger sticks I'm facing up, you don't want to brush by them with trees behind them, because you can break them right off. And so kind of figuring out how to get in front of them correctly, to put the right face in them, and then to be able to get behind them and take the front stems off. As you can see, takes a lot of kind of thought and a lot of coffee. So that's what I'm doing, and I was happy with it. It came out well. I'm trying to quarter it slightly up the hill, fall away, log away from that live creek. And, it worked out pretty well. Another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and you can see a couple stems that that I just take right off the stump, single cut, and there's a hemlock a little bit later on here that'll kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. Again, this is just something I just wanted to kind of throw out to somebody who might get something out of talking about a technique. And so with a leveling buncher, the leveling system is more powerful than the head and the boom and stick. And so cutting downhill with a stick that you can take off the stump and swing around, and oftentimes in this situation what I was doing was pulling a tree out of standing timber so I could get down in behind a tree that was faced up. So I'm having to work it. I got to pull that top back and swing it uphill with some resistance, and that's a challenging application for the buncher, and you can lose a stick pretty easily that way. The tops generally grow downhill, so you got to work against that too. So the head and the boom and stick are very powerful, but the leveling system is much more powerful, and so a good trick to use on that is to use the leveler to tilt the entire machine up the hill, and also in the direction that you're falling, so you can get underneath that top and send it the way you want. And so that definitely is a technique I use a lot, as we all do. And again, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody. It's not like I know everything. It's more, that's just something I wanted to mention as a trick that I use for somebody maybe who's, just getting going or is interested in it. I just kept right at it and got this little piece on the ground. I'd been on this block or this unit for a while. I think this was the second to last piece I had to clean up, and I went on to finish up this the last one and went on to the new one. So it worked out well. Just want to give a little shout out to Cody on the log and shovel. We put him in some pretty challenging positions here, and he's done a real good job. It's been a tough winter, and we shovel log some pretty tough ground. We all do. You kind of got it these days. And, he did a really good job under difficult conditions, I think. So good for him. Unfortunately, red cedar. It's a very valuable tree, and like I said, it is delicate. It's you have to be careful with it when you're cutting, careful with it when you're logging, and unfortunately, it's very valuable for the landowner. But it tapers significantly, and you definitely need to cut short logs to get good scale as much as possible. And even then, the scale tends to be fairly poor. So, the truck drivers whine, and a day of logging in solid cedar, which is unusual to begin with, and not be all that productive in terms of volume. But the crew did a great job at it and got her done. So. Well, there's some beautiful fir on this job too. It's just an older stand, we'll be back in the future. Kind of looking forward to that, because it was very nice wood. Hopefully we'll be there in maybe a little bit more favorable conditions. So, anyhow, here's that hemlock I'm going to bend uphill. So take a look at that, what I said. Thanks for watching. Be safe.